So here are 20 unusual redstone components that you won't find in the redstone tab list.
Not every situation is covered by your standard top 3 rows of the redstone tab.
And today we're discussing a very interesting and heavily underrated component, the wall.
Alternative redstone wiring. At a high level, redstone dust and torches isn't gonna cut it anymore. But if you've watched a few videos on alternative wiring, they most often fall between two categories. The most common dustless wiring methods, which are not niche at all, or the very niche systems that are very sus and don't seem to have a clear application. In this video, we'll go over some niche wiring tricks that are not so mainstream, yet have been very useful to me recently. The first circuit we'll be looking at is a rising edge monostable. See, every time I see the failed piston retraction mechanic used, it's to show you how you can update suppress water and shit. But you'll rarely ever need that. Instead, we can use that mechanic to recreate this monostable, but with one advantage: you can keep the support for the wiring above. It can be useful when you try and compact as much as possible your redstone. Next up, we have a falling edge monostable. So it does the same thing as the first monostable, but it instead sends a pulse when you stop powering it. It's super small and silent. It can replace the alternative piston observer and save space in a bunch of scenarios. Have you ever been in a situation where you can't move a redstone block from point A to point B because it would power stuff it shouldn't? I myself can say that I've been there. So the best way to work around this is to simply use a solid block and power them only at the point where you need to send the power. I'm only going to show 2 examples. I think it's pretty intuitive. You can also use this trick to save on some redstone. You can use a single dust instead of a whole block. It's not more laggy because the redstone dust doesn't flash. It's a trick that I first saw on Fire X4's birch tree farm. Still working with pistons, sometimes you'll work with a slider that has a solid state at one end, but no mean to detect when to send the slider back to its original position at the other end. Well, maybe you can use this trick. You want to use a sticky piston for the first end and a redstone block or something to get a signal from that block. Now send the signal down to the second end of the slider, and there you have it, a smart solid state slider. It's that simple. Now let's take a look at the bubble column instant wires. By removing and replacing the source end, we can get our instant signal going up. But if you didn't know, you can remove a water source above the source end to toggle the bubble column. It's easier, cheaper, and faster. I'm not a big fan of dropper clicking, so when it's possible, I try to avoid unnecessary dropper clicks. I can do that by pointing 2 droppers one into each other with items that won't match. That makes it so that the droppers send an update to the observer that's looking at it without making any noise, because it thinks that it transferred an item into a container. You can see here that it's silent, and here that it's not. But it gets even better. You don't actually need a second dropper. You can simply put a dropper with just a single item inside, pointing into a composter, and it'll still be silent. And for the final trick that I'm going to show you today, we have the use of concrete powder. Recently, it's been a huge help to me when designing storage tech. At some point, you just end up with so much stuff around that there's no way to use a torch tower or slime blocks to send a signal upwards. That's when the concrete powder gets useful. It doesn't interfere with adjacent wiring at all. The only thing that you need to be careful with when using concrete powder is random input that could break the system. Now all you need is a repeater or something pointing into the concrete powder at the top, and it's going to transmit your signal. But you can also take a solid input from this block here to power other pistons all around. But I hear you. When will I use this, Patat? Well, I don't know. Personally, I've used this to almost its maximum capacity in here, on the multi-item sorter mini bulk. I think you too can find ways to incorporate that into your wiring one day. After all, that's the point of niche wiring. Bonus tip to help you with wiring. If you've been trying something for 30 minutes and nothing works, go do something else. It's really gonna help you lose the tunnel vision and replenish your creativity. I'm so good at this trick that I'm now addicted to Overwatch. Please send help. If we're talking about that, I might as well add that sleeping 8 hours a day helps keeping focus. Focus that you need so you don't end up with 10 ongoing projects that you keep procrastinating on because it's hard. You know? I'm sure every TMC YouTuber can relate, sadly. If you found these tricks useful, consider supporting my efforts at bringing you original content by liking the video and joining my Discord server. I'm in the constant process of adding new technical resources on there. There are videos, websites, charts, pictures, and links that should help you out no matter your redstone skills. Otherwise, that's it for today. Don't forget to worship nether trees, and I'll see you in a few months.